This is a battlefield. This is a box. Hello and welcome to Battlefield in a Box. So going to be making tall line of sight block and stuff. So what I want is I want this to stick out here. So I cut out a base, make sure this fits the box. I've done all the edges, they're beveled and a bit uneven. I want this to kind of come up out of the ground, not to sit into the ground. Then I've cut the edge at an angle, and I've cut so you see there's a slight diagonal there. And I've cracked it down the middle so it's still just holding itself together. I will put glue into that crack when I stick it in place. But what I've done is I've just made it so that the bevel gives you that slight curve, or slight diagonal lean, and the edges are all sitting flush. So then I can stick this down, and this will provide my high line of sight blocking terrain, which, as we know in tabletop gaming, it's important. Or at least that's what Windows SEO told me. Here's my two upright stands. These are going to be my two big line of sight blocking pieces as such for this box. And just to note that I am just using nails to pin. I've got one in the bottom of this piece. This bit is resting, but I'll just pin the top because I want to make sure that's fairly flush. And I've just got one nail in the bottom of each half of this. I will pull these nails out afterwards, but that's because I'm going to be building up a bit more staff around them, and that will provide structural support. So the more stuff gets attached, the stronger the piece will become. The other thing worth noting on this other bit over here is I've just used a little bit of offcut right down in the corner, which you can't see of course because sun's a thing. It's down in here, and that's just to hold that corner back. So I want a bit of a curve, and this is to sort of help create a place where you can tuck a unit in on this side, because this is going to be like the ravine of death. Here we go then. Here's our rock formations using the vertical plane, so that you get the sort of the striation through the layers of rock as such sticking up, almost as if there's maybe been some kind of earthquake or something which has caused rock to shift and sort of flip up on end, or a sump which has allowed it to drop in one den, or if you've got Gene Steeler cult, perhaps the ground has subsided into the mines, thusly opening up a hole to the surface. If I flip it around to the side, you can see like it's built up in layers, and these layers actually all sat in. You just had to put a slight bevel on the bottom edge, just making sure they stack together. And there are some gaps, but I will be filling that both with a mixture of like just remnant polystyrene bits and pieces, like sort of the balls, by running glue into the gaps, and then just sort of dropping them over the top, scattering it over the top, and then also covering everything. I'll give everything a coat of sand before spray painting. Everything will need sealing and sanding, but I'll probably just do one coat of seal / sand. Also, you've got these kind of bits in underneath, so you've got somewhere underneath where you can hide people, as well as somewhere in the front. Also, because you've got a lot of depth to the material from the side, you actually have a decent sort of high piece of side blocking terrain. On this piece, I've left a patch here so that you can try and get your dudes in there for cover, or on the other side for cover, or on there. That also means that I have sort of two slight variations where this other one you just have the sort of gap on either side. Also, they're big enough for you to hide your knight behind or what have you, not completely hide, won't block line of sight, but you'll at least get cover. Finally then, I've given him a paper base, and this is just to add a bit of extra strength to the thing, and I would strongly recommend that you do that first. I shouldn't have done that last. It's good if you can apply some pressure through the polystyrene as it's gluing, because it helps to stop bubbling. You may find that as the paper bubbles you need to just smooth it back out, and try and get faster drying glue than I've got. For some reason this glue's taking a long time to dry, and I'm not even using tons of it, but I think it's also because I'm not exposing it to the air. So the other thing is to leave it exposed. So, following the theme of the Valley of Death, I'm going to build 4 pieces. So these are wedge shaped, and we do it properly. So I've cut out my bit of paper for the base for all 4 of these, and so the next step is just to glue these bases together, and then I'm going to continue this So we get this and this. A bit lower than this, so maybe 3 to 4 inches tall. And then a lower bit on the other side, so you've sort of got distinct cover, so you've got a channel of line of sight blocking and then a sort of channels of cover either side of the line of sight blocking. So you can fight through the valley. Here we are then, and the pieces are all assembled basically, all the key pieces. We'll do some additional bits. But this is my line of sight blocking terrain and large area terrain. This will be kind of desert biome, I suppose, so don't have to have sort of lots of tall pieces. The other pieces will be sort of like cover pieces, for want of a better phrase, where it will be stuff that you can count as cover for your troops as opposed to stuff which will block line of sight, and it'll just look pretty on the battlefield, you know. So I'll just put these with the aim of making this sort of valley shape. And I did do one wrong, so this one I did wrong. This tip should have been there so that the narrow points were always at either end of the valley, but it's not the end of the world, it does not matter that much. But you get that nice dynamic form. And then I've also filled in all of these gaps where there were gaps, just using like the remnant bits, you know, like how polystyrene breaks down into all the balls and that. We're just putting glue into the gap, dropping them in and carrying on dropping in until the gap is filled. So the next step is just to see, does it fit in the box? The answer is yes, it does fit in the box, but not quite so neatly as the industrial sector did. Primarily that's because when I've been building these pieces, I haven't sat down and actually made sure that they all sit inside one another neatly or anything like that. I've just kind of made them and they do fit in, but there's gaps. So what I'll do in terms of filling up space is I will make pieces that fit the space. So I'll make a series of sort of flatter things that sit underneath this so that these can sit on top of them. So I've got a couple of inches of space here. And I might make something that fits into this gap and the same gap underneath the other one. And just so you can see how these mash, because I've got the one with the gap in the middle and the one with the spine. And these are both on the sides which are not leaning away, so that's sort of, this is leaning towards this edge and the same. It just means that they actually sit very neatly on top of one another, like so. And so you can compress more into the box. Now you could say quite easily that maybe you should just do 2 sets of these in one box, but for the minute I'm doing it this way. Having got everything else prepped, the final stage before painting is just getting a layer of glue on and a layer of sand. So here's everything just covered in sand. Leaving that drying overnight, need to make sure that's completely dry, and you may notice that there are little white gaps, and that'll be okay. Unfortunately it does mean that that's probably not sealed properly, because you want the seal from the glue to stop spray paint from melting, but a little bit meltage, not that much of a problem. So the next step will be painting. Here is the painted product then, and I'm just using spray paint to do all this stuff, and we're ending up, this is sort of like a sandy, pinky sandy, like a Nevada desert kind of that. I don't know, I've never actually been there, so I don't know, but that kind of red sand / pink sandstone kind of quality. And probably can't see, but in the depths of where the paint has melted in, and the melting isn't a problem, it actually removes some of the polystyreneness. So between the sand and the melting and the sealing and everything, it kind of gives you that finished look. I think it's turned out pretty good. Pretty happy with all that. If you are curious about the paint process, I start off in this instance with purple, so that's a dark one. I'm just using spray paint. This is MTN hardcore. I'm using like graph paint, graffiti paint if you like, MTN, Beltone, Montana, Bombs Bast. They're just, what they do is they give really good coverage in any weather. So I've done a purple, just painted everything with the purple first, that's my dark undercolour. And then I've got like this nice reddy pinky brown which I've done as the next coat, and I'm coating this up whilst the paint is like it's not quite dry, and that means that the paint starts to blend together whilst it's settled. Then I've done a first tier on the rocks where I've used a slightly lighter pinky brown, just blasting down from the top, covered the ground with both of these two as well. Then I've just hit up the bases, just sort of aiming for the bases and not the rock, and although you get some spray up onto the rock, that's what gives you these nice yellow fades around the bottom edges. Then I've gone in for a light pink and I've just aimed to get into the rocks, and that gives sort of a bit of differentiation. And then this is just a white paint, and I've just dusted everything with that. And dusting, and all of the time I've been using like apexing techniques. So if you know about your airbrush techniques and apexing, it's like that kind of thing. But dusting is like spray paint term where you just hold far enough away so that rather than getting a jet that hits it, so like maybe 2 feet away, that'd be like 40 to 50 centimeters away, say, from the thing, so that you're not ever like blasting it with a solid thing of that color, you're just getting the dust on it. And then in the case of the white, I'm kind of dusting the whole thing but aiming at the top for the most part, but so you get a bit of spray down, and then all of these tones are blending together, and that is what's leaving you with these kind of really lush fade tones where you're getting that kind of desert quality, and also the rocks and the variegation and the nice highlighting. Feels good. Well, feels good to me anyway. There we go then, this is the final bits done. As you can see, I've flocked, and then I've also varnished. Just using a Army Painter spray varnish, matte finish. Doing it reasonably light, not too worried about anything being perfect. And the thing about this process is you're getting glue into all of the bits where the melting has occurred, and then you're flocking it, and so the glue, getting the glue in, strengthens all the bits which are now delicate from the melting from the spray paint. So then, here then is a battlefield. A simple one albeit, and limited number of bits trained, but they block a lot of line of sight and it gives you enough stuff to fight about. And well, I'm quite happy with how this comes out. At some point I think I'll look at the space left in the box, and I will build bits to fit in around it so that there's some extra stuff, because I quite like to have a few bits backfield, maybe some low stuff which is just cover, you know, like craters and the likes, things that don't take up much space and can be fitted in around these bits. So I hope this will be some use, interest to you, and that any of your terrain building is going well, especially if it's a battlefield in a box. Thank you for watching, have a good one, take care, bye bye.